Good evening and welcome to the Left Monkey Music Show. Today we have on Drew Rose. Drew, welcome back, man.
How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. It's exciting. I We were on before, and we talked about your old band, and we talked about your the older channel. But you got something new going on, and been in the works, and it's pretty mammoth actually. You got a bus and a new rebranding. Let's hop into it.
Yeah. When did I talk to you last? It's been well
Been a
over a
while.
year.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, yep. Because the process
Yeah.
was going on. We were waiting till you got kind of back on your feet again with this show.
Yeah, so we launched the old channel brand 80s metal recycle bin way back during the pandemic.
Yeah.
And we were trying to figure out what to do with all this content we had shot. We'd been all over the place shooting content for a year plus or more. And I was having a conversation with Steve Rachelle, from Tuff, from
Metal Sludge and
Metal Sludge and all the other stuff he runs. And he said, why don't you launch a YouTube channel with it? And because we originally were going to do some sort of documentary with it. And it was really daunting trying to get music licenses and all of that. And so his suggestion was a good one. We started to put that stuff out little by little, yeah, every week, and it just kept building. And we found ourselves with a nice fan base, a good size, I don't know, in the end, 35 plus thousand subscribers and millions of views. And so it was a good move on our part to do that, and a great suggestion from Stevie. And then we sort of, came to a decision that, a lot of the interviews we were trying to get, we faced a bigger challenge, which was, the name of the channel, was called
hmm
80s Metal Recycle Bin. And so some of the guys that we wanted to interview were like, I don't want to go on a channel called that, and I don't know, and all you guys have are these people and those guys, and kind of a pigeonholed us, if you will,
Yes. Yep.
so um, was my partner, Jim Darby, who was the drummer from Wildside in the whole project. He had come to me and said, hey, I got this idea. It was in my opinion, it was a little, out there to try and, find ourselves some sort of tour bus, if you will, and then go ahead and gut it, and empty it out and start over again and rebuild it as a broadcast studio. And then we would take the interview to wherever and to the artist, and then rebrand ourselves. And he had already come up with
Yeah.
this idea. It was fully vetted in his head. He had been thinking about it. Anyway, I said, let's see where we can go with this. And then that took 6 months of really kind of working things out. And then finally we had the money, and we went ahead and started looking for the bus. And we found the bus. It took a couple of weeks. We found the bus in this sort of place out up in Las Vegas.
hmm
And Jim went and made a few trips out there, and we finally, shook hands on the deal and drove away with this thing. And um, we didn't have any idea really what we were getting into, because that in itself was a massive undertaking. I was in Florida at the time, living in Florida. I'm back now living in LA, but I was in Florida at the time when he bought the bus. And it was really on his back to get this thing converted. I was obviously on the phone with him every day telling him what I was hoping for in terms of production, and broadcast studios and so forth. But he really did organize, and in many cases do a lot of the work, physical work himself. We had
hmm
contractors in there tearing the thing apart. We had contractors coming in and rebuilding and repainting and reupholstering and coming up with plans along the way. And there were lots of challenges that, you don't really, Jim does a lot of house flipping as part of what he does as a business. So that part of it seemed to really, made a lot of
It
sense
is
to get in
right.
there and
Yeah.
flip a house, but flipping a bus and a house, and the structure of this thing and the way that it get once you start tearing apart one thing, you open a sort of a rabbit hole into another problem. And so then we got the bus. Finally, it took forever to get the bus done, and we were storing it somewhere. And you know, not to mention we had to come up with artwork and logos and had the bus wrapped and logo designs and artists and building a website at the same time and trying to build a brand for the big launch and then trying to figure out who our first artist was going to be that we were going to launch it on. And we're storing the bus in one of those like locker places, like a big warehouse where they keep boats and RVs. And
Hmm.
as they're pulling it out for us to kind of get out there and do our first real venture, they wrecked it and creamed the entire side of the bus. Like I'm
Oh,
talking from front to back, took out the whole side of it. And I don't know how it's a 14-foot tall ceiling or taller, and then it had like a 30-foot. I don't know. We don't know how they did it, but they did it. Then it had to go back in, get repaired, which took, several more months and more wrapping and it was a lot. And then finally, we were ready, and we brought in some new team members to help us with booking our talent.
hmm.
Um, and so this woman named Valerie, she does a lot of these rock and roll fantasy camp type stuff with a lot of major artists. So she has a deep Rolodex of people, and in this case, Michael Anthony was one of them. And so,
That was a home run. He's a good guy,
yeah,
and
he's a great
and
guy.
he's salt of the earth. I think as a fan just watching it, I mean, I got a lot of questions for you, but loving the bus, just the logistics of trying to light the inside of the inside of the bus feels like it would have been a
Yeah.
nightmare because it came out great. He's lit great, but it's being so small and tight, like it feels like
Yeah.
it's a lighting nightmare.
Well, the bus it's got a lower ceiling, certainly not like a home or a warehouse or a
Hmm.
studio, but it's got a really nice wide, we have pop outs. The bus pops out
Okay.
on the side, so we've got a good 16 feet in width, and using the right lenses. And
Yeah.
as you point out, we went out and really researched and bought a lot of LED lighting. And yeah, you're right. It was a bit of a challenge. We did camera tests all, before we ever went to do the first interview. So we did a lot of, oh, that doesn't work or this works, and audio tests and, making sure that we did it right. And I brought in some professionals, that I know. We shot that first interview with Michael on a Red camera, which is a really high quality, film production camera that
Mhm.
they shoot professional movies on. So it just was a matter of trying to find, the right equipment to make it look right, as you
Well,
point
using it
out.
right too, though, is very important. A little of my
Yeah,
background. So, I mean, I knew when I first saw this, I'm like, I couldn't believe how fantastic it sounded and looked
yeah,
inside of a bus. I was
yeah,
like, that
yeah.
is
Well,
stellar. Like that, yeah, that was your home run right there, for as far as I'm concerned. I'm
yeah.
like, I gotta talk to him because that was fantastic. You know?
Yeah, well, thank you. Yeah, we pride ourselves on that. As a matter of fact, we have another interview coming up very soon that's dropping on Thursday with Sebastian Bach,
Nice.
and that was shot at a festival. So you hear, we're in a bus and we're on the festival grounds. It's very difficult to, it's all the background that you see in Michael Anthony's is all soundproofing material that's on the inside of that bus, but that's not going to stop the sound of a hard rock band in the
Right.
background playing, this was a festival for the Ronnie James Dio Cancer Fund that
Mhm.
goes on every year in Los Angeles, presented by his widow Wendy
Yeah.
Dio. And so there was a lot of rock bands there playing. And so we're trying to conduct interviews while in the background, some guy's playing, some Mob Rules or, Panama, some cover band is playing Panama. So you're hearing boomy kick drum. And if you've got a subwoofer on any system you're listening to it on, you're going to hear it. I did a lot of, we've been working on the project the last week now, the video, and you do a lot of, there's a lot of tools in sound to pull out certain things. But those low end kick drums are almost impossible to get rid of.
Three people might hear it though. 50 to 75% of people are going to be watching on a mobile phone. It's going to look
Yeah,
good,
that's true.
but that
It's
is your
going to look,
demo. That is going to be your demo. It's going to look epic,
yeah, yeah,
but
it's
it's going to
going to
be
look
on a mobile phone.
amazing. And again, we're production people. I am Jim. Jim obviously now is seriously sometimes even more pickier than me when it comes to what we're editing.
Mhm.
And so been hammering it out over this audio all day long. But in the end, we're at a festival. We want people to know we're at a festival, especially one that's as important
Yeah,
as that one. And so you got to forego some of those background noises because they're going to be there. We're planning to be at lots of festivals this summer, and you're just going to hear music in and
that's kind of
about
what you
the,
want, though. You want to hear the bleed through the mistakes. A guitar player hits the wrong note when you say show. You want the
yeah.
sweat. You want to be
Yeah.
backstage. You want to see the wrong stuff. It's not.
Yeah. And
It's rock
that's
and
what
roll.
some of these, yeah, exactly. That's what some of these interviews are going to include is the backstage element over and above what's real, the interview itself. So in this case, yeah, Bach is being interviewed with lots of music in the background that you can't quite decipher, maybe here and there. And
You can make that a trivia game in the back. Who can figure out what it is? Also.
yeah, right. It's funny. So yeah, we have a lot of cool interviews in the can. Some interesting ones. We're gonna start doing a get on the bus discovery video every once in a while, where it's a maybe new to a wider spread audience, where maybe the artist hasn't been heard of as much, but we like them. Sort of a introductory kind of things with someone, so there's a lot of videos in the can and a lot more being scheduled this concert season. So we're excited about it.
Well, first off, yeah, congratulations, and I've already subscribed.
Thank you.
To get to your numbers you got at the end, I'm just close to that numbers now after doing this for many years, to where you
Yeah.
were with the recycling and we are now. Which
Yeah.
once you do a couple more videos, you'll blow that out of the water. So I realize how
Yeah.
much hard work it takes and how the audience is, and I probably have the same demo as you, crowd, and the quality is obviously way different, and even when you did the recycling when you first came out, you hit the ground running and you exploded fast, and you obviously were high quality. Now, through the way, have you done any advertising sponsors? Like, how have you kind of done this?
So
Because you kind of exploded. Each time you do something, it explodes.
yeah,
Wow,
well,
big audience.
I honestly, when Rochelle said do a YouTube channel, I immediately said, I don't know anything about it. And he said, well, there's people that do, and you just ask some questions, and so I obviously called Jim, and we sat and talked about it, and neither one of us, we're kind of in a little bit of a different generation where, hey, social media is like it's scary stuff. We don't know. But we just started throwing stuff out there, and it didn't really take off right away. I mean, there was some interest, and then we dropped a very interesting video with Dana Strum talking about how Ozzy found Randy.
Yeah.
And that was the sort of launching pad for us. That story went viral and was able to really bring in a large amount of fans. And then as we continue to drop, key, interviews like Jeff Tate or some of the other guys that have a larger audience and sell more records, then obviously that translates into more subscribers and more views. But then we put it on pause, and I was worried that, we're going to lose our audience. But they
Yeah.
hung out there, So we look at the numbers every day, and study the analytics and see who's there. And as we continued for well over a year not to put out a single video. I was shocked that anybody was still joining or even cared, but they were, and not in real numbers, but they were there. And then, of course, the big, how do we go from 80s metal recycle bin to get on the bus and keep those people? We didn't know what was going to happen. And Jim and I were taking bets on what the numbers were going to be with Michael Anthony. And of course, it surpassed anything we could ever imagine. It's gone viral on just about every international uh,
He doesn't do a lot
guitar
of interviews though
music.
either. He's like a white tiger interview
He
also.
is, and we were very fortunate through Valerie, whose books Our Talent. She's very close with Michael Anthony's right hand man, sort of
Mhm.
his road dog, a guy named Doogie, who's been with Michael since the very
Forever.
beginning.
Yep.
I mean, basically since the 80s.
I've heard that name
And
forever.
yeah, and Doogie was able to, work with us and finally get Michael to commit while they were doing their residency in Vegas with Sammy. We were working on Sammy. We were working on, all the guys in that band.
Yeah.
Kenny Aronoff. I mean, Joe Satriani. They were all in Vegas at the same time, and it seemed like everything was going to come together for multiple interviews. But at the last minute, the guys had other things they needed to get done. But Michael stuck in there, and we drove to where he goes out there and has he brings his own tour bus. He's got some big, long, crazy, big ass tour bus too. He goes out there with his wife and his dogs and his family, and they go park it for, a month at this resort that was like, I couldn't believe it. It's not like your regular RV resort. This place was
Yeah.
like, 10-star resort where you pull in and you've got your own private, backyard with a swimming pool.
Really.
And yeah, no, it's nuts with your own outdoor kitchen like setup is really high end. Anyway, he took his little golf cart over to our bus where we were parked. And that you heard him say, I got off my bus to get on this bus, and so get on the bus, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So it was a lot of fun. And as you point out, one of the classiest, I pushed him. I pushed him to give me some dirt and talk to me about what happened, because everybody seems to know a version of the story of what the Van Halen brothers sort of did to him in a
Hmm.
in a in a in a very unexpected moment in his career. And I wanted to hear it from his mouth. And he was, he wasn't willing to
He's still
go
guarded
there.
though. No, I don't think he ever will. He's a classy guy. He just doesn't want to.
Yeah,
He's old school, man. I respect that about him though. I mean,
yeah,
do you think the challenges now you're going to have is because of all the other podcasts, it's not the same quality podcast burnout. So these are a couple questions before you can maybe
yeah,
answer them at once.
yeah,
So like one of the problems I had with my show, like with the audience, is I didn't want to just do metal. I know a lot of people that just do metal go, oh, there's no one's doing albums like it could just down because there's no cycle of whatever. I've never done that, and I've watched my viewers at one point go up, and then I do an artist like Air Supply, get good numbers on that, but I watch my numbers go down because everyone's like, what did I just Air Supply? I was doing a music show, Arthur Brown. I do like yes, I'll do all kinds of stuff. You know what I mean?
yeah.
It took a long time for my numbers to even out, where they just don't always plummet with the different artists. The or a new artist
Well,
that tanks my numbers. You get an unknown artist will tank your numbers for a
yeah,
podcast like mine.
I think you bring up a good point, but you're also, it sounds like, you recognize that, you're not a linear sort of channel, that you need to be versatile. And we're the same way. That's why we got away from 80s metal or any sort
I think
of,
that's a smart move. That was a very smart
and
move.
and get on the bus could mean, country.
Hmm.
It could mean pop music or rap or rock or some of the harder stuff. we're just focused on bringing the level up a bit more, not to say that, some of the guys that we've interviewed are not amazing interviews, even if their band isn't, multi-platinum, but we want to bring the level up. It costs a lot of money to get that thing on the road, to get us where we need to be, and to set up with the team and do it all. So we have to be sure that we're, at a certain level that we know
Well,
that the
that's my point. Is like, how are you going to get
yeah.
there? Because the revenue from like YouTube is not going to bring you there. I mean, I suppose at some point it could, but you know what I'm saying? You put a lot into it up to now,
Yeah,
and it's a lot
I
to keep
think
it
well look,
moving. You
we
know.
have we have sponsorships that are starting to kick in. The
Mhm.
show is being produced in such a way that everything you see on the screen is fully licensed by us. In other words, we license all the music, we license all the photos, we license well,
Yeah.
obviously the talent is ours. Nobody is sharing revenue on the YouTube side of it at all. In other words, we're not using content that someone else owns that
Mhm.
we got to share. So it's all our revenue. We've done the math strategically on what we currently were making as versus where we're going to be making, and we've already started to see where the numbers come in. With Michael Anthony, and it's like, wow, you said something about YouTube. Actually, they pay very well if you're reaching numbers like
Right. If you're gonna make those
two
numbers.
hundred 200,000 views,
Right.
and that brought us in another 6,000 subscribers
Hmm.
in just less than 2 weeks. So, if you look at a guy like Rick Beato or some of these other guys that are just phenomenal, he's spoken a lot about how much money he's made over the years.
Hmm.
And so, yeah,
Oh, it's doable, but I'm saying you're entering a field that you had to invest in it. So the challenge for you is to get up and running. Like Rick Beato
yeah,
had a studio, so that was clear revenue coming in. He used
yeah,
what he had and built off of it.
yeah, we have a lot
You
of
invested a lot. You
recovery.
invested more in it than most people do.
Yeah, we have a
So
lot of recovery to get through. Um, and we recognize that, but we think it's going to catch fire. Uh,
I do too.
we went from a lot of we went from a lot of like no, not interested to we're doing this right now, but reach us back at this point, or yes, let's do it right now. And it helps when you have something interesting like that. The bus itself is its own, sort of celebrity. And so we're hoping that, with more of that we can attract the the numbers through the artists
Mhm.
themselves, and vice versa. A guy like Michael Anthony, as you point out, doesn't do a lot of interviews. So we look back at all the interviews that he has done, and there weren't that, like, he didn't go viral. He hasn't gone viral in a really long time. And so he's excited. We're communicating with him through the way we were
Mhm.
able to reach him, and he's excited about seeing what's happening. And we're hoping that other artists jump on and get that same sort of feeling of like, was a great interview, it was a great experience. Look at where my numbers are. Everyone's tagging me now, and I wouldn't be surprised if Michael Anthony gets a lot of requests for interviews immediately. Although, it's
I
like you
think he's
said,
been getting them. He's been getting
yeah.
them. They don't. I've even reached out to him over the years. They don't even
Yeah.
answer. They're
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, he's hard. It's and why does he doesn't need to do it. He's not putting out
no.
a new album. He's not putting out a new right. This was a complete favor through a favor kind of deal. And that sometimes is what it takes, and we know that,
Mhm.
like, okay, get out there and help us out. And we're trying to help
Your Dana Strum is what
get
helped break you. Dana doesn't do a lot
yeah,
of interviews. That was
yeah,
another one. I mean, that's
yeah,
you
yeah.
know.
Yeah, and doing it right, doing a good interview, being able to be prepared as you are too, when you do these interviews. It's a big part of what we do. So, and I think the same goes, like, we've been trying to get Sebastian Bach forever too,
Yeah.
and it's tough nailing him down. That guy's pretty out there and wild
Yeah.
and eccentric, but also,
I think I've been
busy.
close before once, and then
Yeah.
gone.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Nothing personal. It's just how
So
the industry goes.
yeah, it is. And so, like, as we continue moving forward on this thing, we've got our sights set on some really big country stars and some festivals and you know, let's hope. But I have
Festivals are
been
great though. You could just load them in, huh? You could just
that's
load the
right,
talent in. That's
yeah, that's
and
the
you have
that's the and that's what we
save
did
it
at
on your
the
travel.
that's what we did at the Wendy Dio Festival. We were like grabbing everybody
Mhm.
backstage that wasn't even necessarily performing. We just saw them back there and said, "Hey, see that bus? Come on,"
Yep,
and
that's
it
smart.
worked. Yeah,
That's smart. Have you
yeah.
thought of like every week a certain time? Have you figured that out yet? How you're going to be releasing it yet? How often?
Yes. And so that's a very interesting question you asked because in the past it was random for us. We were like, "Hey, we just finished a video on a Sunday night. I'm kind of tired. I'll catch up with you tomorrow, Jim. Let's drop this tomorrow morning, Monday morning." And there's the beauty of what was back 3 years ago versus today is AI. And with AI, you're able to get a lot of information. You're able to
Yep.
ask it, okay, this is what we're doing, this is when we want to do it, and this is what do you suggest? And it's come back to really give us some strong information in terms of like YouTube's algorithms
Hmm.
and what it the best time, the best, all those things which I'm sure you've studied. And so yeah, typically we're shooting for once a week. A lot of, we Jim and I do everything. This isn't like other than the day of production when we do have our people, then it's here's all the hard drives. Now go home and figure it all out.
Hmm.
And we have other gigs, we have other things that we're doing that, I have a family, and it's always a challenge to get it all cut and produced and
Feed the beast.
yeah, man.
You got to feed the
Um,
beast. YouTube.
yeah, we got to keep going. So we're hoping for every week, but it might be as much as 10 days, if we can do it. But I think it's well worth waiting for each time because you get a great piece of entertainment with it.
It's a challenge. I think you're going to do really well. And I agree. I was going to say I think you not doing the hair metal thing. It's a tired term. I don't care
Yeah.
personally about either way. I mean, I just think it's rock and roll. I don't think I like all different everywhere. I like everyone for everything. I respect everything that was done. And you go in like that, and you don't do the cheap interviews. Digging's good. You got to find a way of balancing it. And I think your show's always been very balanced with it. That's why I like it.
Yeah.
Because you go too much, you do the clickbaity, and you don't want to be that show either.
No,
Because then
no.
you will not get an artist. People do not realize if you become clickbait, you start losing artists. They don't realize that.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
watch your
And we
shows.
made a
Artists and PR people are aware of YouTube. They watch that stuff.
Isn't it interesting that some guy will do a channel where he's clickbait completely? He
Hmm.
never once had a minute with the artist, and it's an AI voice speaking throughout the video, yet
Yep.
he's got 380,000 views on one video that he dropped a week
Yep.
ago.
And it's not even information's correct. I'm like, I just interviewed that guy. I'm
Yeah.
messaging them. I'm like, that's not even correct. Like, I
Yeah.
just talked to them. I can email them and
Yeah.
verify. Like, yeah, it's crazy. Like sometimes the numbers don't make sense. Like even some of my
Yeah.
shows, like, huge guests matching other. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah,
weird.
we have to, there's a fine line between, making something interesting in your title versus, oh, this is just a clickbait thing to get us there. And we get
Yeah,
comments, this Michael Anthony interview has thousands of comments, which oh no, actually it was like 700 comments. That's a lot.
yeah.
And in a short amount of time. And to have that many and have them all be positive would be ridiculous to think that that would happen, right? You got your diehards who are saying,
Yep.
yeah, you should have done this, and then you guys, your haters on the Van Halen brothers, and you have people that are saying you should have cut it like this. I don't like that. I don't like this,
Ugh,
But for the most part, if I'm, without sounding, like I'm tooting my horn too much, I'd say a good 98% of it was really, really positive for our first video under the new moniker as a brand like this and changing the whole thing. So you know, not bad, and we couldn't have picked a better one to launch off of. But I'm sure when we get into a little more controversial artists like Sebastian Bach, for example, you're gonna
Thank you. Just
have,
turn off your comments. Just turn off the comments. You don't need that.
yeah, it's gonna
Seriously,
get
you do not need that.
interesting.
Oh, you
Yeah,
do not
yeah,
need that.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
I want to thank you for being on the show. I want people to
Yeah.
watch you.
Mhm.
I've always been a big fan of you. I used, dug your music, early on. Last show
Thanks.
we talked about the production of your other one because I still thought it was a step above everybody, the production
Yeah.
wise of all the
Thanks.
shows, including myself. And as much as I enjoy it, I still recognize the value of what you're doing on another level because you're kind of taking the mixture of the rock interviews, music interviews, combining with what old TV used to be, the fun part about TV, without the
Yeah.
broadcasting budget behind it, the
Yeah.
YouTube budget. So you're kind of in new territory. That's why it's very interesting
Yeah.
for me to like where you're going with it because it's cool.
Yeah.
It's a new world, you
Yeah,
know.
well, thank you. Yeah, again, the show, in case anybody doesn't know, is called Get on the Bus on
The link
YouTube.
will be underneath.
Oh,
Just click on it.
okay.
And just
Yeah, cool,
people just
cool.
click on it. I'm not that show that doesn't put links underneath it. I don't know why. At the very beginning, I've always put the links to who's I'm talking to. I sell nothing. I don't make any
Nice.
money illegal. I'm literally just support whoever's on my show. That's literally the
Right
goal.
on. Cool,
So
cool.
people support them, click on it, support them, like them, follow them. You know, it's all good. I want to
Right.
thank you,
Well,
man.
hey, I appreciate you, promoting and helping me out. It's always good to work with other people. We're in support of everybody that we can be with their
Mhm.
channel and so forth. So
I want to thank you for being on the show. I
yeah,
appreciate it, and we'll catch up again down the road maybe when you got time. If you have time because you're so
awesome.
busy now. All right, take care.
Yeah, right.